If you want to have command of your life, you must have control over your thoughts. In this video, Mel Robbins breaks down the secrets on how to have control over your mind.
The thing that's so difficult for most of us is how, when you're alone and you turn off this show, do you push through the excuses, the habits, the fears, and the actual physical constraints that you have in your life right now so that you can make the pivot? And so I often say that I am not a what speaker or a why speaker, I'm a how. And that there's already incredible information about what you can do and why you should do it. And I find that the place that I get stuck is, okay, well, that's great. And I do a lot of thinking, but how do I get out of here and make it happen?
Our thoughts are our biggest killers of our dreams.
Totally.
They're the biggest killers or our biggest cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know how to really, I guess, I don't know, not manipulate them, but to really hone in on them, then we can have a messed up life. And I've gone through many years of self-destruction growing up just because I didn't know how to manage the thoughts. I didn't know how to, I was never educated on it really, on how to not control it, but I don't know, what is it?
What is it?
What is it? Yeah, not control it, but what is the word I'm looking for?
Well, see, I talk about it this way. So I like to simplify things because it makes it easier for me. I'm almost 50 for crying out loud, and there's only so much that you can remember when you get to be, when he's 33, that's a whole different ballgame. But I think about your brain as being in two modes. Two modes to your brain that you need to know about. There's autopilot. We've all experienced that. You drive to work and get there, and you're like, oh, who drove the car? Oh, my God. Like, I don't even remember driving the car here. Yeah. Well, you did, Lewis. You drove the car. But the thing is that you were in the mode of your brain that's called autopilot. Well, what is autopilot? Autopilot is the interior part of your brain. You'll hear neuroscientists and psychologists talk about the basal ganglia. Very important thing to understand is that there's a part of your brain that its entire job is basically to execute your habits. Habits, big fancy word, means something very simple. Behaviors that you repeat without even thinking about it. When you pull your pants on in the morning, I guarantee you either put your left or your right leg in first. And you have to stop and think about which one it is, don't you? But not when you're putting your pants on.
Right, exactly.
Because that behavior is what researchers call a habit loop. It gets encoded as a closed loop system right here. Now, the problem for most of us is that half of the day we're on autopilot. And that's not me making a guess. That's what researchers that study habits and study psychology say. That half of your day, you're basically kind of checked out and you're on autopilot. And when you're checked out and you're on autopilot, any behavior pattern that you repeat can take over. And guess what are behavior patterns that we repeat? Thinking patterns. So self-doubt, worry, procrastination, overthinking, analysis paralysis, fear. Those are all thinking patterns that are habits. One of the most important things that I want people to understand is that you're actually not a worrier. You have a habit of worrying. Big difference. You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. And when you understand that any behavior pattern, whether it is a thinking pattern like you doubt yourself all the time, or you get trapped upstairs noodling everything and you can never get started, or whether it's a behavior pattern like you drink too much, or you snap at your kids, or you micromanage your team. Every one of those behavior patterns and thinking patterns can actually be interrupted and replaced using science. Now, let's talk about the second part of the brain. Drive. That's this puppy right here. This is what you want. This is your prefrontal cortex. Drive is the mode where you're in charge of your thoughts, okay? It's where you are fully awake, you are present, and you are driving your thoughts and actions. When you're doing that, your prefrontal cortex is active. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that you need in order to learn new behavior, in order to do something difficult, in order to do something uncertain, in order to do strategic thinking. So I'm going to give you an example. So I'm a righty. If I were to try to write with my left hand, Lewis is going to torture me and tie my hand behind my back and make me do this, I could do it. It would look like I was writing with my foot. And if Lewis came up to me and said, "Hey, Mel, you want some bulletproof coffee?" I'd be like, "Lewis, I'm trying to concentrate. I can't do this." My prefrontal cortex would be el fuego because it is firing on all cylinders to communicate to my hand new behavior. So the thing that's cool about that is that you can use a simple trick. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, the moment you've got one of those moments where you know that you need to, this is that moment that Lewis talks to you about where you got to step outside of your comfort zone and you've got to lean into your passion and you've got to really take some risks and you got to feel the fear and you got to do it anyway. That's the moment where you just woke up and now you got a decision to make. Are you going to drift back into the habits, or are you going to awaken your prefrontal cortex and drive forward and focus and do something new? And so the work that I've been doing and speaking about is all about the 5-second rule, which is a trick that I invented by mistake that helps you manually switch, no joke, your brain. It turns off and interrupts the part of the brain that is where all your habits and your behavior patterns are encoded, and it awakens your prefrontal cortex, which in 5 seconds flat allows your brain to help you change. And so, anyway,
I love it.
I was rambling on and on because you went on this thing about how your patterns can be destructive and nobody teaches us. And that's absolutely right. And what I want everybody to get out of this conversation between us is that you cannot control how you feel. You cannot control what triggers you. And the fact that you may rise up with anger, you may rise up with self-doubt, you may have anxiety, fill your body, but you can always control what you think and how you behave. And we spend way too much time trying to focus on manipulating how we feel about things and not enough time practicing the skills of controlling your behavior and your thoughts.
Because if you can control your behavior and your thoughts, then the way you feel will be different.
100%. And a lot of us are sitting around waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel courageous, waiting to feel confident, waiting for the right time. And that's not ever coming. Ever. Ever. You're not going to change your life up here. You only change it through action. And so to me, I did this interview with your friend Tom, and we talked about how motivation is garbage, and somebody memed it and went crazy. And so the point that I was trying to make is that motivation is great if you feel motivated, but it's garbage, and it's a losing bet to wait to feel ready. Because your body's not designed that way, and neither is your brain. And so I want everybody to understand that, first of all, you can't control the things that trigger you and the fact that you're going to feel afraid and you're going to feel doubt and you're going to feel uncertain. But you can always interrupt that feeling and take control in the moment and actually shift what you're thinking and shift how you behave.
Yeah. And, the bigger the dream, the more fear you're going to have. Even if you feel like you've conquered the fear of something, in order to grow, you've got to take on some new challenge. And there's going to be uncertainty. There's going to be some stress, or there's going to be some worry, or there's going to be some ego checking, and there's going to be some identity crisis.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be this fear that could arise.
Always.
Always. I mean, do you feel like once you'd mastered this that you have no more fear?
Me?
Yeah.
No, the fear still comes, but I have 100% control of what I think and do. Right. So one of the things that is important for me to put on the table is that a lot of times, people look at where you are now. And so they'll see me on television, or they'll see that TED Talk, or maybe you'll be in an audience of 20,000 people in the American Airlines Center, and I'm on stage, and you're like, wow, that chick must have just been more than confident. Like, I hate her. The fact is, that's not at all how I was. When I was 19, I started having crazy panic attacks. And they got so bad that I took medication, and medication was a godsend for me. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. When I had our first daughter, who is now 17 years old, the postpartum depression was so bad that they put me on Ativan, which turns you into a zombie, and I could not be left alone with her. So when it comes to self-doubt and to how we can torture ourselves with our thoughts, boy, have I lived that nightmare. And as I started to use the 5-second rule, which we're going to get into, and everything about my life changed, because when people first learn the rule, what you're going to start doing is you're going to start using the rule to push yourself to do things that are annoying. You're going to push yourself to get up on time. You're going to push yourself to work on your business plan. You're going to push yourself to make calls that are scary. You're going to push yourself to get to the gym. You're going to push yourself to speak up more at work. You're going to push yourself to put the booze down. Behavioral. And then you're going to start to actually use it to change the thinking patterns that are self-sabotaging. So I, 4 years ago, wondered, as I started to see myself go from facing bankruptcy to building a figure business. What happened for me is I started to say, okay, this is a really cool little trick to bring out the most powerful side of you, but can I use this to actually cure myself of anxiety? And the answer is yes, you can. And 4 years ago, I went off Zoloft and I started using the 5-second rule, which I'm going to explain in 1 second, to interrupt the patterns of worry and self-doubt, which, by the way, anxiety is nothing more than the habit of worrying, spiraling out of control. And body feelings triggering now the habit of obsessive worrying that turns into anxiety and then kind of escalates to panic. I started using the 5-second rule to interrupt my thoughts every time I would feel that kind of worry kick in. And because the prefrontal cortex is awakened when you use it, your mind is now ready to take on a totally different thought. It's a very different strategy than just trying to switch the channel on what you're thinking, because you're actually inserting the step that nobody talks about, which is switching the gears in your mind so that your mind can actually take and believe the thinking.
You have just inspired me to continue on my path of entrepreneurship that has taken away my doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the negative self-talk, all of those things. So I follow a lot of the personal development people, and yours has stuck the most with me. Has actually resonated and it actually has worked.
Why do you think that is?
Because, that's a great question.
Hold my hands because I can see your shape.
I am. I think you're just real about it. There's no sugarcoating it. You connect with it. It's not where you're telling us to not say do things, but the other personal development people tell you to dream big and you think these things, but it's the taking that blockage away. Okay, I want to dream to go have a house in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, well, I'm still blocking that in my way. So I have to think about reframing my mind and all those things and how to do it.
Yeah.
And you have taught me how to do it. So I have 6 mantras that I say every morning that you have taught me.
What are they?
Well,
I need them.
Well, they're yours.
What are my 6 mantras that move the most for you?
So every single day, the first I say is, the world needs my story.
Yes.
I say my next chapter is just beginning.
Yes.
I say I'm growing every day.
Yes.
I say every day I'm getting stronger.
Yes.
I say what's meant for me is trying to find me.
Yes.
Which is my absolute favorite one, because I had a hard time comparing myself to other people in my industry. And been oh gosh, the right people aren't going to come.
What is your industry?
So I'm a professional home organizer.
Fabulous.
And so I'm everyone else I'm not getting the clients I want or this and that. But that one was huge.
You traveled here for this event.
Yes.
I've heard about you. Yes. I heard that you traveled here out of state to come.
I came from Charlotte.
Yes, from Charlotte to Fargo.
Yes. Well, I'm originally from Fargo.
Okay.
So this is my
But
home.
still, you traveled, so I'm going to give you credit for that. You get a high five for traveling that far.
Yes, the high five. So that, and then I'm committed to my financial freedom. And then another one that I did from meditation is abundance flows to me and abundance flows through me.
Yes.
So those are what you have taught me, and they've helped me, and I say them every day, and it has helped my mindset more than I can tenfold ever thank you for.
And you're welcome. Thank you for trying it. Because I often think that the reason why the things that I'm talking about work is because they're so damn simple.
They are.
And sometimes they sound so stupid, especially when the problems are big or the goals are big.
Yes.
But when it's simple, you can remember it. Mm-hmm. And in a moment of doubt or fear, you can apply it.
100%.
And when you use one of those 6 reframes, it removes the thinking that's keeping you from taking the actions.
100%.
Because the simple secret is this. If you know what you want, what you have to do is bring yourself back to the present moment and just align your thoughts and action with the thing that you want. So imagine the person in Hawaii, imagine the organizing business, and you've got your millions of followers and your HGTV show, or maybe you're on the Magnolia Network. I don't know, maybe that's your dream, or maybe you're doing a YouTube show, right? So you have a dream and you give yourself permission to have the dream, and then you say, okay, well, here I am today on a Tuesday, and I'm standing in my current life. How do I think like the person who has what I want? And what's the one action I could take today that aligns with turning my life toward the thing that's meant for me? Mm-hmm. And so I'm so proud of you because you are allowing yourself to hear your heart's desire and you are pushing yourself to walk toward it every single day. Mm-hmm. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
So
awesome. What's blocking you currently?
Well, see.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, what is it?
A whole list of questions. So, like, what's blocking me currently, like, with the realm and my space in that world. So, like, everyone knows the names of, like, the Home Edit, Marie Kondo. And I love them. I respect them.
Right.
And I'm like, how do I move my mind frame of my limitations thinking they have made it so big and so far. Like, I want to get there, but, like, I don't even know how to take that away to get my mindset around thinking I can get to that level.
Right.
Like, how do I get there without feeling like a copycat, but also, like, knowing that it's possible because they're doing it.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm stuck right there.
Got it. So you're stuck in comparison.
100%.
And the people that are ahead of you on the path that you're walking down are making you invalidate yourself.
Totally.
Great. No, not great. Not great. Not great. But this is normal.
Yeah.
Okay, it's normal.
Okay.
It's normal. So one of the reasons why our brain sees everybody that's ahead of us as competition is it's trying to protect you from taking any kind of risks. Yes. Normal for your brain to do this. This is where reframes are critical. I also want to tell you, I struggle with the same thing. I am launching a brand new podcast show in October. All I see around me are the 2 million shows out there, the bigger ones, the this, the that, the other thing. And if I look at them as being ahead of me, I immediately go, why am I even doing this?
100%.
Yes. Okay, so here's how you're going to reframe this.
Okay.
You have to say, they are a light on the path.
Okay.
They're a light on the path I'm walking down.
Yep.
They are showing me it's possible. That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, there is no copying because there are no original ideas. Seriously.
Right.
I want you to be inspired. You're not copying, you're inspired by what they're doing.
Right.
Okay? And when you look at a pantry, if you're inspired by what Marie Kondo does or the Home Edit does, you are going to look at the pantry and take that inspiration and do it your way.
Right.
So do not invalidate the fact that your dreams and these people that are showing up are actually trying to get you to feel inspired again.
Okay.
Your doubt and your fear is blocking the inspiration. By calling it I'm copying them, you're demeaning the fact that your dreams are getting stirred up.
Right.
Your inspiration is going.
Right.
So you got to keep walking toward that. Okay, that's number two.
Okay.
Number three, you may never get there. You may be way bigger. You might.
That's true. Okay.
You might.
Okay.
You might.
Yeah.
And you also are so lucky because you can study everything that they did.
True.
And then you can take the step that they took and you can go, oh, this feels right for me.
Right.
Or you can take the step they took and go, ew, I wouldn't do it that way.
Sure.
I'm going to do it this way.
Okay.
And so literally use their path to test out ways to try this.
Okay.
Because the thing is, you're going to build your business your way.
Right.
It is a gift
Right.
that other people, you know what I'm doing right now? 4 months ahead of launching my own podcast, I am stalking every podcast person. I am listening to their opening episodes. I am studying what they do.
Okay.
I am practicing, and I am trying to figure out what feels right for me by following what other people have done.
Okay.
It's impossible for you to be somebody else.
Right. Absolutely.
But in trying and practicing and being inspired by other people, you are going to build the skills and the muscle to find the courage to put your own spin on it. You got it?
I got it.
Okay, good.
I'm going to do it.
And now here's the other thing. It's not a freaking race.
Okay.
Please play the long game.
Okay.
Please do this because you love organizing.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me why you love organizing.
Well, a lot of reasons. One, I just love being able to help people. I can see it like there, but I also know from ADHD standpoint, like my history with school was so hard. And like that's, I wouldn't say like my scarring moment, but I had to be organized. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because I would have failed out of school.
Yeah.
And I wanted to achieve. So it's like, it has got me to where I am today because of that.
Yeah.
So that's why I love it. I see people so frustrated and I always thought everyone knew how to do it.
So this is perfect. That's the long game.
Okay.
You're not addicted to organizing a pantry. You're addicted to that moment
Yeah.
where somebody has a breakthrough in what life could be like if
Yeah.
they're organized.
Yes. Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Stay attached to that.
Okay.
Play the long game.
Okay.
It won't ever matter how much money you make or how many followers you have
Right.
or what product deals you make.
Yes.
Because you'll stay attached to the heart and soul of why you're doing this.
Okay.
Got it?
I got it.
Good. Awesome. Go get them. Go get them. I'm so proud of you. Let me tell you what the brain hack is. We're going to read from chapter 7 today for those of you that like to read along. We're on page 87 of the High Five Habit. I'm going to read this chapter to you and I'm going to teach it to you, okay? Today I'm going to teach you how to create, with a really simple hack, a more positive mind. And it has to do with this. What is this? Anybody know what this is? Anybody know what this is? This is a heart-shaped rock. Okay, you want to see another one? Here's another one. A heart-shaped rock. Every single day, I have a simple hack. Every single day, when I wake up, I play this game. It's now a habit where I look for a heart shape somewhere in nature. It could be a heart-shaped rock. It could be a cloud. It could be a crystal. It could be a shape on a spot on a dog. It could be an oil stain on the floor of a garage. It could be anything. But I look for a heart shape as a way to train my mind. And I do it because I want to prove to you. And by the time we're done with today's teaching, chapter 7 is what I'm going to read to you today. I want you to promise me that you are going to look for a heart shape somewhere in nature today, wherever you are in the world. A puddle, perfect. Anything that you see out there. Right now I can look out at the tree. The mountain kind of looks like a heart, I notice right there. That's pretty cool. I want you to look around today and I want you to see hearts. I want you to look for one. And here's why. There's a filter in your brain called the reticular activity system. Okay, I write about it extensively in the High Five Habit. Your whole life has programmed the filter in your brain. All of the negative experiences in your life has taught your brain to filter the world in a particular way. And what I'm here to tell you, and what I'm going to teach you today, is that once you understand your reticular activity system, it's like a filter on your brain that is alive. It's a network of neurons that's constantly shifting and changing and responding based on the information that you tell your brain is important to you. If you don't believe me, how many of you have ever wanted a new car? For me right now, I'm obsessed with the new Bronco. I want one of those 4-door color green Broncos. I know there's a year-long wait list. I know I need to get on it. I love the new Ford Bronco. Once I decided I love that new Ford Bronco, what do you guys think I saw everywhere? All the time, all over the road. I see Broncos everywhere. And the reason why is because your reticular activity system, which is a live filter on your brain, it responds in real time to whatever you say is important to it. And so just like me saying, oh my God, I love that new Bronco. I want a new Bronco. I got to buy a new Bronco. I got to get on the list for a new Bronco. I see Broncos freaking everywhere. Now, I'm not sure I want one because it seems like everybody has one. You know what I'm saying? I want you to play this game with me where every day when you wake up, and you can start doing it today, I want you to look for a naturally occurring heart shape. And the second you see one, I want you to go, oh my God, there's a heart-shaped rock, just like Mel was talking. There's a heart-shaped leaf. There's a heart-shaped something. Holy shit. There it is. And the reason why I want you to do this is because when you notice it, holy cow, when you take a photo of it, your brain starts to go, whoa, you're really into hearts. And the filter in your brain changes in real time and it allows in more heart shapes. The reason why I'm explaining this to you, and I want you to use this little hack, is because if I can prove to you that by simply telling your brain that you want to see more heart shapes in the world, if you experience your own brain changing the way it filters the world in real time, then you will believe what I'm going to say next, which is, if you want to change how you feel, if you want to change what you believe is possible. You must change how you talk to yourself because your brain is filtering the world based on how you talk to yourself. And chapter 7 of the High Five Habit proves to you that this little hack of looking for hearts, everybody, every single day, naturally occurring hearts, and realizing that your own mind will change and is flexible in real time to change how it filters the world. When you realize the power of your mind, you will make it a priority to speak to yourself differently, to talk differently about what you want in life and how you think about yourself, because what you say matters, because your brain is paying attention. If you say, I'm a bad person, how many of you say that to yourself? I'm such a bad person. I always screw up. Nothing works out for me. If you say, I'm a bad person, isn't it true that you see things every single day that make you think it's true? And then our daughter said, yeah, actually, yesterday I missed my dentist appointment. I just completely forgot about it. And as soon as I realized I blew off the dentist appointment, totally forgot, the first thing I said to myself was, there I go again, screwing everything up. And I said, look, that's an excellent example. Imagine if instead of missing the dentist appointment, imagine if when you miss the dentist appointment, how many of you have missed a dentist appointment? I know I have. How amazing would it be if you missed the dentist appointment and you could just shrug your shoulders and go, oops, forgot the dentist appointment, without going, see, I screw everything up, and pounding yourself into the ground and beating yourself up. Imagine if you could teach your own mind, everybody, to not see all the stuff that's happening in life as evidence that you're a bad person. Because you can forget a dentist appointment and just let it pass through your mind without attaching, I'm a bad person, to what happened. You have to be deliberate. You have to tell your mind exactly what you want to think about yourself when things mess up. So my daughter looks at me, this is a true story, and is like, really? How the hell do I do that, Mom? I've been telling myself I'm a bad person and I screw everything up for as long as I can remember. How the hell am I going to get my mind to think something else? And this is when I hit her with the heart rock game that I'm telling you, you got to steal this hack from me. I said, well, let's train your mind by playing a simple game that's going to change the way that your mind works in real time. And I said, every single day, I want you to look for a naturally occurring heart shape in the world, whether it's a heart-shaped rock, a heart-shaped leaf, a heart-shaped oil stain on the floor of your garage, a heart-shaped swirl of milk on the top of your latte, anything counts. And then my daughter said, you mean the way you're always looking for heart-shaped rocks when we walk on the beach, Mom? And I said, yep. And you know what she said to me? She said, Mom, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I said, my other daughter then said, I agree. How the hell does looking for hearts stop me from feeling like the ugliest one of all my friends? I want you to teach me how to be happy and how to be successful and how to make a lot of money in my new career, Mom. I mean, you're a self-help person. How the hell do rocks on the ground help me change my opinion of myself? Fair question, right? Don't worry, I had a great answer. I said, look, the point of the exercise of every day, I want you to look for a heart shape, like a heart-shaped rock in the world. The point of this, everybody, is to train your mind to spot the things that you're blocking out so you can prove to yourself that you can make your brain work for you by simply telling you what's important to you. And if you want to make a lot of money, you better train your brain to see opportunities and deals that other people walk right by, just like you walk by that stupid rock on the ground that's laying there right now. And you miss it because you're not looking for it. And if you want to stop thinking you're bad or hating the way you look, you better train your mind to stop attaching that thought to everything you see. Pretty smart, right? If you'd like to make more money, you got to spot opportunities to make more money. If you want to feel better about yourself, everybody, you got to stop pounding yourself into the ground with negative thoughts anytime life doesn't go 100% your way or you screw up, which is totally normal. I could tell they were considering my argument. So I went even further. Besides, oh, there goes the clock. Hold on a second. And feel free to ask questions in the comments. This is a short chapter, okay? Besides, if I told you, everybody, to just repeat a positive mantra. I'm beautiful. I'm a good person. You'd think this is stupid because you don't believe that. So first, I got to show you the power that you have to change what your mind sees. Then you're going to trust what I'm saying. You see, good people mess up all the time. It doesn't make you a bad person. And even if you are a bad person at times, why does that make you unlovable? See, it's all about the way you flip the things you look at so that you can see a world that makes you feel empowered and supported. Imagine how much easier and fulfilling it would be if you could stop the beatdown and just love yourself while you work on your health goals. Now, let me tell you how to do the heart-shaped exercise. You guys ready? Okay, good. Starting tomorrow, super easy, or today, starting today, I want you to find one naturally occurring heart shape in the world around you. Then stop and take a look at it. Here's mine. Every day when I go for a walk, if you follow me on my stories, you will see that I take photos all day long of heart shapes. This is the kind of thing that trains your mind. I'm getting asked for a meditation on manifesting. Yeah. Looking for a heart shape every single day in the world around you is a way to manifest because you are practicing a skill. You're practicing a skill of waking up and intentionally saying, I am going to find a heart shape today. You are putting that intention into your mind. And by putting it into your mind, you're training your mind to work for you. Now we're going to take it a level up. You ready? When you find something, I want you to stop. I want you to take a moment. I want you to take a photo of it. Oops, my phone, my computer just died, so we're going to stay on Instagram. I want you to take a photo of it. And I want you to really feel that was placed there for you. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to have an experience whereby you feel that literally the universe had put something there for you and your mind helped you find it. And if you take that moment and you feel a moment of gratitude, what's going to happen is that energetic, positive experience of acknowledging that you told yourself you were going to find a heart shape. And then your mind scanned and you found it. And now you're taking a moment to feel grateful that this happened, to be present to the larger forces that are out there. And then take a photo, put it on your story, tag me, Mel Robbins, tag High Five Habit. And you will be shocked. Because what will happen is because you took a moment to positively encode it in your brain will start showing you hearts all over the place. You're not going to believe the amount of hearts that you walk past. I'm dead serious about this. These are just a few examples on page 91. I repost these all day long from you guys. There's a heart in a coffee cup. There's a heart right here that's a leaf. We've got a heart. One of my favorite ones was inside of an onion. We see rocks all the time. I'm looking for this stuff. That's on page 91. I just realized that we lost our friends on Facebook because your imperfect friend, Mel Robbins, forgot to plug her computer in. So we lost power. Oh, well. Done is better than perfect. And simply showing up here today and making a little bit of progress instead of waiting for it to get perfect is better than not doing it at all.
We live in a very big world. There is enough room in this world for every single one of you to be successful, for every single one of you to have your dreams come true. And you're really not in competition with one another. You're only in competition with yourself. And so I want to take 5 minutes to give you the trick to how you disrupt your own behavior and your own perspective. And it starts with a question. How long does it take to actually change? Major change in your business, in your life, in how you are as a leader actually happens in micro moments. And here are going to be the 3 obstacles that you're going to face if you want to try to do something new. First of all, it's going to be your brain, which is what we're going to talk about today. Secondly, it's success. So the more successful you are, the harder it is for you to change. And the reason why is because, first of all, you've spent years and years doing things a certain way, and you've become very successful because of it, and you've probably convinced yourself that if you do something different, it's going to sabotage your success. That sort of thinking didn't work out very well for Blockbuster, didn't work out very well for Kodak, and it doesn't work out very well for human beings. The other factor, fear. But we're going to focus on this one, the brain. So I love the tagline for Nike, and the reason why is because of this word, just. Their tagline could have been do it, right? But Nike understood something. They understood that even for a professional athlete, there's always the moment of hesitation before you're going to take a new action. Physicists actually call it activation energy, the fact that in order to stop doing something like sitting at your computer and actually force yourself to do something else, it takes a certain amount of energy to activate the new behavior. And Nike knew this. That's why the tagline's so powerful. The just is a nod to the fact that there's a moment of hesitation. Where does the hesitation come from? Well, it doesn't come from the pleasure center. How many of you have heard of dopamine or cocaine? Or, this is where Professor Roberts' rock and roll and emotion and all that stuff, the reward center of the brain exists. But what you need in order to change behavior, in order to put down the phone, in order to actually reverse mentor, like Lisa was talking about when she said, oh, just get somebody younger who's a digital native to actually mentor you in technology, you need the prefrontal cortex. And here's the problem. The problem is, even though your brain's pretty amazing and this supercomputer that can process information really quickly, it only really has two modes. Either autopilot or you disengage from autopilot and you're directing your thoughts. Now, how many of you have ever driven to work and you get there and you go, oh, who drove the car? You have that feeling like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even thinking and somehow the car got here. Well, you were actually driving the car. It's just that your brain was an autopilot because you've done it so many times the same way. In order to change your behavior, you have to check out of autopilot and check into drive. You have to use your prefrontal cortex. Now, your brain's going to hate that idea because look at all of these things that are crunching on your head. Whenever you feel stress, whenever you fall into a routine, whenever you have too much choice, whenever you get overwhelmed by the pace of life or the connectivity that we live in, or there's fear, what happens, oops, does anybody know the attention span of a goldfish? Anybody? Nope, not 3 seconds. Nope. Close, 9 seconds. A goldfish actually has a longer attention span than a human being. Not kidding. Also, 270 cereal choices in the average American supermarket. 270, 41,000 products in the average supermarket. Your brain, when it's presented with too many choices, either makes the same choice all the time or none at all. Bridget was talking about putting down the phone. Do you know that if you have unanswered emails in front of you on your phone, that it lowers your working IQ by 10 points? It's hugely distracting. So what does all this do? The spotlight effect. They did this interesting study at Cornell University where they gave students a Barry Manilow t-shirt. And of course, they were mortified wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt. And the students were asked to walk into a room where there were a bunch of people that were facing the door. And then they asked the students, how many people do you think noticed that you were wearing this embarrassing t-shirt? The students thought that at least 50% of them noticed. Turns out only 20% does. Your brain overestimates the amount of attention that is on you. And, honestly, nobody cares what you're doing. They're busy thinking about what they're doing. But by having this spotlight effect, you overestimate how your exposure is. So what happens when these things happen? Well, your brain gets flooded with cortisol, and suddenly you don't feel like doing anything. And this is how it plays out. So if you have a dream, you want to write a book, immediately, if you think about it, because you need your prefrontal cortex, you're going to get uncertain, and immediately your brain's going to say, nope, not going to do it. If you want to change ad tech platforms, you're suddenly going to feel overwhelmed by the number of choices that are presented to you, and you're going to feel like, I don't want to do it. If you want to volunteer, you got inspired by Blake. Suddenly, you're going to feel like I don't have any time. Your brain's going to kill the idea. You want to get back in shape? You're too tired to do that. Brain's going to kill the idea. You want to start dating again? You're a little nervous about that because of all the stalkers online. Within 5 seconds, your brain kills your interest in doing something new. You know exactly what you need to do to change. Everybody does. Raise your hand if you'd like to lose weight or get in better shape. Raise your hand. Yes, we all would. And keep it raised if you know exactly what to do. You have all the information you need. It's just a matter of whether or not you feel like doing it. And that's the fact. Here's the truth. You're never going to feel like it. Ever. And you never did. People only do the things they're paid to do, that they're pushed to do. That's what we call parenting. Or that they feel a deeply personal connection to doing. If you think about what you were like as a kid, you never felt like doing your homework, you never felt like bussing the table, you never felt like wearing your Sunday best, you never felt like looking adults in the eyes, you never felt like using your manners, you never felt like clearing the table or feeding the dog or going outside to play or turning off the computer. And you still don't feel like doing things. My son never feels like getting off the computer, and then when I come back 5 minutes later after I've told him to, he gives you that look. You've seen that look before, right? They never feel like actually clothing the Barbies. I don't know why that's the case, but it's true. You only do the things you feel like doing. So when you hear an extraordinary panel like this, or you get inspired by, John from IBM about the potential for thinking in machines, and you're at that moment where you're sitting at your desk, and that person walks in that you can't stand at work, and you know you should acknowledge them, are you going to feel like it? Of course not. It's in that moment that you either do or don't. You have to act within 5 seconds, and this is how you do it. This is how you're going to practice it at this conference. We only have a few hours left. So I've been trying to drive personal connection, direct connection with direct marketers, and you guys have been really awesome as you're kind of getting, the ice is breaking. But I want you to play this game with yourself so you notice how weird you are. As you scan the room throughout the day, notice who you're drawn to. The second you feel the impulse that this person looks interesting, start connecting. Lisa told you that the most important thing you could do is network. Start walking within 5 seconds. Because if you don't start walking, you're going to be up here and you're going to be like, oh, they're talking to somebody I don't know. This looks kind of weird. I'll catch them at the next session. Not going to happen. Why am I asking you to do something physical? Does anybody know the age at which the brain stops growing? Anyone? Guess? 16? Nope. 25? You would have been correct 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we thought the brain stopped growing at the age of 25. The answer now is never. It stops growing when you're dead. How many of you have heard the word neuroplasticity? Right? So I saw a really interesting way to explain this. The truth is your brain's always growing and expanding. That's why you can always learn new things, which is amazing because it allows for what we call behavioral flexibility, meaning there's no reason for you to ever be stagnant, not in business, not as a leader, not as a human being. So let me show you what neuroplasticity is. So this kid who's making a handprint, pressing down on the clay, that's what your brain basically does when it's learning new information. So when I'm telling you you have that impulse to start writing a book, you don't start writing right now. Make a note to yourself. Send yourself an email. Turn to the person and talk. Do something physical because that's the first imprint in creating a new neural pathway. So what happens is when you marry impulse with behavior, when you know what you're supposed to do, you don't feel like it, but within 5 seconds, you actually take some form of action. You're making that first impression. Let me show you a few examples. Does anybody recognize this photo? Amazing story. I'll probably cry when I tell you this. So the Todd that is in front doing this was the father of the bride. And he was walking his daughter up the aisle just this past week, and he had this impulse. The guy in the back is his daughter's stepfather. They hate each other. Hate each other. It's been like disastrous for 10 years. So he's walking up the aisle with his daughter. He has this impulse like, oh, I really should. Stops within 5 seconds, starts going through the aisle, grabs Todd, the stepdad, and brings him up. And they walk her up together. This thing has gone global. This is an example of using the 5-second rule. Had he not turned and started walking in 5 seconds, it never would have happened. Another example, Blake. I mean, my gosh, every single twist and turn. You notice how he said, I didn't have a business plan. I just felt something, and so I did it. When I speak to CEOs around the world, I call it the language of the mind and the language of the soul. You need the language of the mind for OpEx, gross margin, revenues, bookings, clients, business plans, strategy, product development. You need to listen to the language of the soul for curiosity, for your people, for your dreams, for your inspiration. Great leaders do both, and you can use the 5-second rule to actually turn it on.
I want to talk about what people experience when they try to implement the high five habit in their life. So we've talked about the fact that I believe every single human being has this habit of self-rejection. You practice it every morning without even realizing it in this moment in the mirror in your bathroom, and then it gets carried throughout your entire day as you beat yourself up, as you focus on what's going wrong, as you point out the negative, as you pick yourself apart, as you hide in the back of group photos, as you stay silent. Like, these are all habits of self-rejection. And so what we know for sure is that and I ask people, just please give us 5 days, just do this for 5 days, because something extraordinary happens within 5 days. We have 126,000 people from 91 countries going through a 5-day challenge that I call the High Five Challenge. They have completed the challenge. We have not had a single person out of 126,000 people report that it didn't work. And so what you need to know is that when you stand in front of the bathroom mirror, you put your toothbrush down and you stand with yourself for a second, it will feel weird. And that's good. It should feel weird because, in my opinion, that is evidence that your brain is now plowing a new neuroresponse instead of operating the habit loop of rejecting yourself. Just like, I'm a right-hander. If I lost my hand today and I had to write with my left hand, it would feel weird. That's a sign that I'm learning something new. So if it's weird, good. What we notice is that there's only 2 reactions that people have to doing it the first time, raising up their hand. The first reaction is positive. So either a lot of people laugh, that I believe is the cortisol. A lot of people cry in a very positive way. And the crying is really good because the way that everybody describes it is it's like a decade or decades of emotional release, of finally getting it. Like you just woke up and you have come home to yourself. And you realize how long you have been longing for that connection and acceptance and seeing from yourself. Is there something that you want to add to that positive thing before we go negative?
Can I show you some models? It's going to make it super easy. Okay, here's a brain and a skull. And here is another model of the brain and body. And so my audience is very familiar with what I'm going to say, but there's always new audiences watching, so I'm going to explain it again. So now, as you've explained that to me, as you said those words to us, that was a sound wave, electromagnetic light waves. Our mind receives that energy, and then the psychological part of our mind does a think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose at 400 billion actions per second, which is a lot to process what you've just said. Now, because it's coming from your place of total love and kindness and absolute passion to share this with people, so everything about you, all the photons you're generating, as Einstein would talk about it, are coming from a place of absolute love. They're coming from your wired for love nature. So that whole message is being received by all of us in this incredibly healthy way. So it comes in, but now this is what happens. It comes in your words into the brain, show up in the brain. The brain responds on a neurophysiological level, a neurochemical level, an electromagnetic level, a quantum level, and a genetic level. Your words at the speed of 10 to the 27 are busy converting into little amino acids that group together to form proteins, and are vibrations inside of those proteins vibrating in the region of 528 hertz and above, which is super healthy. Every concept you're giving us is vibrating in these in its own unique way. So it's your own unique protein. So by the end of this, however long conversation, people are going to have 2,000 or 3,000 plus concepts that they would have taken away from you. And each of those would have grown into a tree like this. So in your brain, you're literally growing trees that I call thoughts. Thoughts look like trees. As neuroscientists, we talk about the thoughts in the brain having an arbor-like structure, tree-like structure. So all of us at this moment are taking your and my words and growing this into these trees. But notice a tree, and I'm going to use this little pot here. A tree is planted with first with the seed and then roots. So our words are the root system. And it's the same thing, proteins and whatever. So this is a thought tree about the conversation with Mel about the high five. So the tree is called the high five. And the detail is the conversation. Now, what you and I are saying is the source. So that's the memories of this thought tree. There's source memories and there's interpretation memories. And you'll see the significance of this now relating, and I'm belaboring the point because this is why the high five is just so important. So, and I'm using this conversation as an example. So the thought is made of memories, root memories, and branch memories. So memories are not the same as thoughts, exactly like a mind. Mind is not the same as brain. Mind is the action, it's the processing, it's the electromagnetics, it's the gravitational field. You have your own gravitational field around you and through you. An electromagnetic field is different to mine. I can't take yours, you can't take mine. But when we interact, we enhance each other. If we are in conflict, we don't enhance each other. We cause brain damage in each other. So as humans, we are wired to enhance. We're wired for love, which is what the high five is helping yourself do personally. But the collective response that you're creating is an enhancement process. But coming back to this, what's actually happening in the brain is that we are all building this root system of the source, which is what you're saying and my responses to you. But every single listener and viewer is interpreting this immediately in a parallel. It happens immediately, simultaneously. So the root branch above the ground, the memories above the ground, the branch memories and leaves and trees, whatever you want, whatever shape it is, are the interpretation of what you're saying. So every person is hearing the same thing, but seeing it in their own different way. They're applying it to their life in their own different way. So now they are busy building an insurance policy in their brain. This high five content is a neural structural change. And I studied neuroplasticity. I was one of the first in my field in the 80s when they told us that you can't change the brain. So that, and now it's accepted fact. So we are being neuroplasticians. We're being brain surgeons, neuroplasticians, historians, archaeologists, all that to build this conversation. So in other words, this conversation's created a structural change in your brain that is a healthy structural change, that if people go get your book, if they get into follow you, whatever, they are then going to stabilize this. But they will lose everything that we are saying if they don't stabilize this and turn it into a habit. And a habit takes 63 days minimum, not 21. Most people think that it's 21. So I'm just telling the whole audience, if you want to benefit from what Mel and I are talking about now, you need to take this. You need to actually get the book, get my Neurocycle app and my book and learn how to apply this over the 63 days. Because there's very little research showing how long it takes to create a neural network like this that is sustainable. So we're doing this now. But if you don't apply this within 24 hours to 48 hours, most of this beautiful tree would denature and become heat energy. What a waste. Then they know, I heard something that Mel spoke about, something about high-fiving, but something good for me, and then they won't really apply it and they won't get the benefit that you're desperate for people and passionately desperate for people to get. Because when humans are functioning as themselves, we won't see what we see in the world that we have today. We won't see this mess and conflict, etc., etc. So that's getting super philosophical. Now, that's healthy. When you spoke about the complaining habit, I have to grab my toxic tree. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, let me see it. I'm imagining like a dead, yes. Okay, great. Yes, this is so good. You know what I love about this is that I love the high five because it's a physical thing that's so simple that has this profound shift throughout your mind, body, spirit, and that think, feel, choose loop. I love the visuals that you're bringing to the table because the second that you said, I got to get my toxic or negative, I can't remember what word I imagine a dead tree.
There you go. There it is, Mel. There's and these are built into neurons on the brain. So this is what, these are the dendrites on it. Everyone's seen what a neuron looks like. And I think if you don't, just Google it if you don't know what a neuron looks like. These branches here are where memory is stored, not in the synapses. Synapses are short-term memory. So as we're speaking, you get synaptic action and then the actual memory stored here. And so these are the dendrites. So they look like trees. So now here, this is a healthy conversation. It's a healthy tree. the proteins fold correctly, the quantum energy is correct, the neurochemicals are correct, your whole neurophysiology, endocrine system, immune system, everything's happy. Okay. But this is a toxic reaction. So when we have this wake up in the morning and you talk about the patterns that most people are waking up and saying, I hate myself, I'm not good enough, the FOMO, the FOPO, all those people pleasing, all that, I can't do this, as you said, the saggy boobs.
It's all the same thing, by the way.
There you go. It's this thing. It's how the statements that we're making about ourselves are this part of the tree, the interpretation. So if we look at our interpretation, we can then track the interpretation. Why am I saying this about myself? So that's the root system. Like the root system of this conversation is our words. There's a source. There's also a source to the complaint. Why are you looking at yourself like that? And this causes brain damage because, as you said in the beginning about how we've got on, you said very very beautifully about our neural network and our brain and body are designed to celebrate. That's the wired for love concept I spoke about. So this threatens survival. This causes brain damage. This I hate myself stuff activates the immune system in the same way that COVID does. In other words, there's an immune response to this. T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages, all going to that site, creating inflammation. And if you keep on 63 days later, 9 weeks later, 18 weeks later, a year later, you're still doing this. This thing, whatever you think about the most, has grown. This is enormous, and it's in your non-conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is a bridge between the conscious and the non-conscious. The non-conscious is where everything's stored. In the non-conscious mind, it's gravitational fields. In the brain, it's trees. And in the body, it's a change in your gene code. This is how powerful this stuff is. So when you high five, you are actually drawing up this toxic thing that's been there for 9 weeks, 18 weeks, 5 years, 25 years, 40 years. And you are actually, and from neuroscience, we know that as soon as you draw something up and you become aware of it, you weaken it. It becomes malleable and changeable. If I don't change it and I walk away from the bathroom mirror thinking, oh gosh, I hate myself, boom, it goes back stronger. So tomorrow it comes back even stronger. And this is in the non-conscious mind, which works 24/7. It's the most powerful and intelligent part of you, and it's driving everything that you do. So how I see the high five, and I don't want to take any of your time because we want to hear you, not me, is the high five is breaking that. It's pulling this non-conscious out of this non-conscious view of myself.
You know what it is?
Out.
You gave me an idea.
Okay, go
it's
for
an
it.
axe.
It's an axe. There we go. It's an axe. And it's an axe that's not only chopping it down, but it's got to dig the soil out because you've got to get the root system. You know, like when you take a weed out of the garden, you can't chop off the head. You have to get the whole weed upended. So the high five is preparing you to do the work of actually getting it out. So it's putting that spade or axe in your hand. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah.
So that's
exactly what it is.
So every day when you do this, you are allowing yourself to bring your identity to the surface, which then drives every other part of your mind, which then drives your brain and your body, which then changes your lifestyle. So this is a step into reversing that terrible statistic of people dying younger.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why it's so powerful is because it does not require you to say anything. The positive programming is already associated with the physical action. Because you've never high-fived somebody and thought, I hate you and you're worthless. Your brain cannot actually, neurologically, it is impossible to think that thought as you high-five yourself. Impossible.
And that's so true. So scientifically, to back you up there, it's the wired for love nature. So that's built in. I spoke about an insurance policy earlier on. Our wired for love nature is our insurance policy. It's why I talk about it as the wise mind. So in the depths of the middle of this forest of all these trees, and some of them look like this, some look like that, there is this beautiful green forest, and that's where the high five resides, in that forest, in that gravitational field, as a resilience network in your brain and in your genes. So it's in all over the place. So it's a recognition of truth.
Yeah, I think that's why people cry, is because by high-fiving yourself, you are reconnecting with your true nature. And that is a powerful spiritual experience.
Speak more about that. That is so true, because I want you to speak about that, and then I'll throw some science in afterwards, because that is so huge.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting you. I get so excited about this, particularly since you and I like freestyling. It's amazing. And I can't wait to get together. We got to do an event for people or something and just really.
Yeah, that's it for sure. We can sit there with all of our little props and we have to. We promise you people this is going to happen.
Yes. So it was interesting because the very first morning that I did this in April of 2020, during a very overwhelming moment in life, when I first did it, my immediate reaction was to laugh. And then I sort of laughed. I realize now I laughed because of the dopamine, but I also laughed because on the kind of surface, standing there in my underwear, high-fiving like it just seems so stupid and pathetic, like when you just first hear it. But I will say, even though lightning didn't strike and heaven didn't open and the angels didn't sing that first morning, but I did feel this little flip. Like I felt almost like the high five had like almost turned a light switch on. Because I noticed my mood went from feeling energetically down, defeated, overwhelmed to all of a sudden this shift in energy. I didn't even think these thoughts, but I would describe the thoughts sort of like, okay, come on now. You got a roof over your head. You can handle this. You've been in way worse places. Get out. Like it was sort of like that sort of like, here we go kind of energy. But I'll tell you, it was the second morning where it went from this sort of funny thing that I did to something profound and deeply moving. And so I woke up the second morning and, you talked about cortisol levels. And I believe that you'll have to tell me if this is true or not, that your cortisol levels tend to be higher in the morning. A lot of us experience a higher level of anxiety in the morning, since we're anticipating that the day is going to go bad. So a lot of us already, whether it's because of past trauma or it's because of just what's going on in your life or because it's a habit to wake up and feel this level of anxiousness. I woke up feeling overwhelmed, feeling defeated. I use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I get out of bed. I start walking to the bathroom. And this is when the high five habit became something bigger. I realized as I was walking to the bathroom that I was feeling something that I hadn't ever felt in my entire adult life. And this is what I was feeling. You know how when you are going to meet a really dear friend that you just adore and you're about to walk into the cafe? What do you feel in that moment when you're about to walk in and see somebody you really adore?
Anticipation, peace.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Exactly. I realized I was feeling that about seeing myself.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And I've been excited to see an outfit or a haircut. I don't ever recall as an adult feeling excited about seeing the human being, Mel Robbins.
Oh, wow. This is amazing. This is core to who we are as humans, and we've forgotten to see that in ourselves in this very fast, technological, physically based world where you've got to get something from outside in to make you feel better, which is how we've been almost programmed. What you're saying is the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah. And so that
profound.
It was a profound feeling. And as I turned the corner and stepped into the bathroom, sort of the profound nature of what was unfolding was hitting me. And it was that second morning, realizing that I was excited to see the human being, Mel Robbins, that I realized, oh my gosh, all this time, it never occurred to me that there's another human being in the bathroom standing there in the mirror. And I believe that represents your soul and your spirit and
wise
who
mind.
you are. Yes, your wise mind. And as I stood there and I had this moment of really just being with the human being, Mel Robbins, it was profound. And I, kind of had, that was the second morning was the morning that I cried when I high-fived myself. And it was as if years and years of feeling isolated or feeling not good enough or feeling invisible or feeling whatever, the pain that we all feel at times in the human experience, that the high five became a recognition of just how much I have lived through and how much I needed and deserved support and encouragement, just like every human being does. And so that's when it really started to crack open. And it's also something that when I notice something, and that is this, you can stand there and be with yourself for a minute. And, when you first start to do it, particularly if you're somebody who has a hard time looking at yourself, or you hate so much about where you're at in life right now, or what's happened to you, or whatever it may be, you can be thinking and feeling all those things. But I noticed in that second morning that the second you go to raise your arm, your mind actually goes silent.
Do you know how often you hesitate and stop yourself? All day long. There's actually a neurological reason why change is so hard. Your brain is designed to stop you from changing. Let me explain. You see, change requires you to do things that are uncertain, scary, or new. Your brain is designed to protect you from doing things that are uncertain, scary, or new. What's your brain's favorite way to protect you? To trap you in your head by making you overthink. I've studied and interviewed the leading researchers in psychology and human behavior, and what they've taught me is that the moment you want to change, break a habit, or do something hard or scary, and you hesitate, your brain goes to work to stop you. Now, there's all kinds of fancy names for this. Cognitive biases, the paradox of choice, the psychological immune system, the spotlight effect. I could name hundreds of them. You don't need to know the fancy names. You just need to know one simple fact. There is a system in your head that is stopping you every step of the way. And the 5-second rule is the only tool that you need to beat it. So how does the 5-second rule beat the system in your head? There are two explanations. First, I'm going to give you the simple one, then I'm going to explain the science. At its most basic level, the 5-second rule is a tool that helps you take action. It gets you out of your head, and that's the secret. You've got to stop thinking and start living before the system in your head has a chance to stop you. Now let's talk about the science. The 5-second rule leverages proven principles in modern psychology, and there are literally hundreds of examples that I could point to, but in this video we're just going to focus on 5 of them. First, let's talk about 2 concepts, one called locus of control, the second called a bias toward action. So a locus of control is a foundational principle in psychology. You should Google it. Back in the day, researchers figured out that there are basically 2 kinds of people. People that believe that they're in control of their lives, and folks that believe that life is just happening to them and they're a victim of whatever might happen. Now, when you look at these 2 types of people, people that have an internal locus of control, a belief that they're in control of their lives, they're happier. They're more successful, more productive. So the question becomes, how do you create an internal locus of control in yourself? The answer is simple. It's called a bias toward action. So a bias toward action is a psychological principle that means you're the kind of person that has a bias toward taking action instead of a bias toward thinking. How do you create a bias toward action? You guessed it. The 5-second rule. The 5-second rule is a tool that will teach you how to take action. And over time, as you use it, you not only learn how to take action, you become the kind of person that operates with a bias toward taking action. And when you take action over and over and over on your instincts, on your desires, on your commitments, guess what you get? You build an internal locus of control. You become the kind of person that believes that you're in control of your life because you're proving it to yourself, one 5-second decision at a time. Let's move on to topic 2, behavioral flexibility. So just a few years ago, scientists thought that our brains stopped growing at the age of about 25. What we now know is that your brain never stops growing. We have the ability to learn new things throughout an entire lifetime. We call this behavioral flexibility. One of the things that's exciting about the 5-second rule and that we see from people all over the world is that when they utilize the rule over and over and over again, they not only create immediate change in the moment with a 5-second decision, but that over time, as they repeat the new behavior, whether it's speaking up in meetings more or it is pushing yourself to exercise over and over, that you actually create new habits and become an entirely different person. This is what your brain is designed to do in terms of its neural pathways and the way that new neural pathways can develop. Every time you use the 5-second rule and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, activate your prefrontal cortex and shift your behavior, you are not only creating immediate behavior change, over the long run, thanks to behavioral flexibility, you're creating lasting behavior change. The third principle is do good, be good. Now, this is a principle that I first learned about from legendary psychological researcher and University of Virginia professor Timothy Wilson. Basically, it means that you can't think your way to being happier or better. You actually got to do something. Now, this do good, be good philosophy dates all the way back to Aristotle, and it's based on the belief and now the proven technique that in order to change, you can't think your way to being more positive. You've got to do things, you got to act, and then your mind will follow. What is the 5-second rule? It's a tool that will help you stop thinking and start doing. Do good, be good, and then your mind will follow. The fourth principle, and that's the golden rule of habits. Now, I could spend 2 or 3 hours just talking about habit research, and whether you read Charles Duhigg's best-selling book or Gretchen Rubin's book on habits, or you watch a number of TED Talks, all researchers believe that habits come down to one golden rule, and that's this. You can never change the things that trigger you. You can't control your urges or how you might feel, but you can always choose how you behave. If you want to break a habit, once you have a habit, it's always going to be encoded in your brain. The only way that you can break it is to replace it with new behavior. There's also something in the research around habits called a starting ritual. A starting ritual is a repeated behavior that you adopt in order to trigger a new habit. The 5-second rule is so incredibly powerful when it comes to breaking old habits and adopting new ones because, number one, the 5-second rule and counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, is a starting ritual. It will interrupt the old behavior pattern and it will trigger a new one. The 5-second rule over time, and this is really cool, actually becomes the new pattern of behavior. Instead of stopping yourself with self-doubt or blowing things off or overeating, you have a new pattern of behavior. You catch yourself, you gain control, you have confidence, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do the thing that you know you want to do. And finally, the principle called activation energy. Now, activation energy is something that was first introduced into the field of human behavior and psychology several decades ago by a rock star professor at the University of Chicago that studied a state of flow. His name was Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he was one of the first really to study human behavior, human performance, and he coined this term activation energy. He actually borrowed it from chemistry. And it's a term that describes this phenomenon. In order to start any kind of chemical reaction, it takes a tremendous amount of energy to create that initial spark. A lot more energy to start it than to keep it going. There's a direct correlation to you and me. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to just get started? How hard it is to get to the gym? How hard it is to get out of bed? How hard it is to put down the bottle when you go to pour a second drink and you know you shouldn't? That feeling, how hard it is to get started, this is what Mihai's talking about. You need activation energy to start the chain, to start to sit down, to start to get out of bed, to start to walk out the door. That's the key to creating any kind of change. This activation energy inside of you that causes the initial
boom. And then what do we hear over time? Once you start, there's a chain reaction, and that allows you to keep going. So what's this have to do with the 5-second rule? Freaking everything. The 5-second rule creates activation energy in you. The 5-second rule is how you activate change inside of you. It is a tool. When you start counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you awaken your prefrontal cortex. You begin the process of changing. You push yourself in a new direction. That first push, that's going to be the hardest. Once you get moving, it gets so much easier. So those are just 5 psychological, scientific principles that explain the power of the 5-second rule. What you're talking about is the 5-second rule, which has become literally my life's work. And it was all a gigantic mistake. I read up on you too and understand how Quest was born out of misery. The 5-second rule and my life now and my 20-year marriage and everything that I'm doing and the companies that I've built and sold and the company I'm building now, it all comes back to a point in my life that completely and utterly blew. I was 41 years old. I was unemployed. My husband had started a restaurant business, which was his dream. This is actually a funny story. When he got laid off from a big job in high tech, and I think he was really relieved. You know how a lot of us wait to quit our jobs and then we get laid off and we're like, yes. And he said, I'm not going to look for a job. I'm going to go into the restaurant business. And I think I said the most famous lines of our marriage at that point. I looked at him and I said, listen, buddy, inspiration is for strangers. You get your butt back to that job and you pay the mortgage. And again, micro moment where I'm being a jerk instead of being a supportive wife. But that's an example of where when he said he was not going to go get a job, but he was going to start a business, the first thing that was there was fear.
Right.
And so fear was making the decision for me.
God, I love that you can share that though. That's so powerful.
Well, so what happened is the first restaurant was a home run. And of course, what do you do when things are successful? You grow it. You grow it really big. And so they decided to raise some money. And we threw in our home equity line, the kids' college savings. They tried to open a second and a third, and at the same point, a grocery store chain encouraged them to go into wholesale. So it basically got way too big, way too fast, and the wheels started to come off. And they came off so badly that the second restaurant failed, and they held on to it for too long, like a lot of us do. It's another trick our brains play on us called sunk costs. When you throw a ton of time and a ton of money at something, it's really hard to let go of it. And if you haven't done it in business, we all have a relationship in our past, stayed way too long. That was a trick your brain played on you. So by the time that they closed the second restaurant, it was an $800,000 loss. Ooh. I mean, that meant our entire home equity line gone.
Right.
It meant kids' college. I get just choked up just thinking about how terrifying it was. And so I found myself at the age of 41, like just feeling like a complete failure. And so did Chris. And to make it worse, not only had we lost all of our savings, but so many friends and family members had invested. And so there was this real tension between the truth of what was happening and what you had to do in public, because it was a public business. Shame, failure, embarrassment, and the liens started to hit the house. The phone started to ring, and it was nothing but collection calls. And I just remember feeling this tremendous shame. And at some point, I think we all hit that moment in life where things just are not going how you thought they would go. And what's amazing about those moments is we all respond very differently. So my husband, he would spring out of bed and he would head right out that door, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he would go meet his partner and they would go to the bank and they would dig right in and they would face their problems head on. And he's also a smart guy. I mean, he did not want to be in the house when yours truly woke up because I was a raging bitch at that point in our lives. And the reason why is because when you're scared and you're afraid and you're jealous and you're overwhelmed with emotion, it is so much easier to point the finger at other people. That's a decision, by the way.
Sure.
One you may not be aware that you're making, but you're still making it. So what would happen to me is the exact opposite. Is Chris would be gone, the alarm would go off at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would lie there.
and I would think about the lien on the house, and I would think about the bankruptcy that we were facing, and I would think about how much we had fought the night before, and I would think about the fact that I was unemployed, and I would hit the snooze button. I mean, why would you get up when your life is like that? Why would you? I mean, I needed confidence. I needed courage. I was so tapped out. And you know, in the scheme of life, hitting the snooze button is not that big of a deal. But here's the thing about life. None of us wake up and say, today is the day I destroy my life. What we do is we kind of check out because it feels overwhelming. Or we check out because we're afraid. Or we check out because we start listening to self-doubt. And then we make these teeny tiny decisions all day long. And we don't even realize it. Decision to not get up on time, a decision to not eat the right thing, a decision to snap at your kids, a decision to not speak in a meeting, a decision to not look for a job, a decision to not deal with your finances, a decision to not call your parents, like whatever it is. All day long, these tiny decisions that take you so far off track. And then you wake up like I did and you look at your life and you think, how the hell did I get here? And more importantly, how do I get back over there? And you have no idea. And so I was so trapped. And I know from your story, you felt the same way. Like you knew that there was more in store for you, but you couldn't figure out how do you close that gap? How do you find the power that's in you? How do you discover your greatness? How do you solve these problems? It feels so overwhelming when you can't. I mean, I would go to the grocery store and the items would scan and I would be sitting there readying my excuse because there was no way that my check card was going to clear.
Wow.
So I got in this struggle with myself that a lot of us find ourselves in, and that is you get trapped in what I call the knowledge action gap. You know what to do, but you can't seem to make yourself do it, right? I mean, every one of us is one Google search away from a list of instructions that if you follow any of them, it will change your life. But how do you get out of your head and stop thinking about what you need to do and actually do it? And in my case, this stuff was pretty easy. Get up on time, make breakfast for the kids, get them on the bus, start looking for a job. Be nicer to Chris. Don't drink so much. Instead of isolating yourself, pick up the phone and call a friend. Get yourself out into the woods and go for a walk. Start running again. Like all these little things that I was capable of, but I couldn't get out of here. Could not get out of here. And if you're stuck, that's the problem. The problem is you're in your head, you're thinking. That is the universal problem. And it all starts with this knowledge of what to do, and then you hesitate and you think about whether or not you feel like doing it. So for a couple months, I was really stuck. Chris would get up at 6, I'd hit the snooze, and then I'd hit the snooze, and then I'd hit the snooze, the kids would miss the bus. And then every night I'd do the same thing. I'd go in bed. Have you ever had one of those nights? Probably before you started your company, but where you go in bed and you're like, all right, Tom, that's it. Tomorrow, it's the new me. Tomorrow, I'm gonna get up on time. I am gonna go to the gym. I am gonna look for a job. I'm not gonna drink so much. It's gonna be amazing. The new me, the future me. Woo! Let's do this, right? Then you go to bed, and you wake up 7 hours later, and you're like, I don't feel like the new me. It's the only, that's a stupid, see, motivation's garbage. It's never there when you need it. Ever, 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 ever. And so here's what happened to me, and thank you for wearing the NASA t-shirt.
Of course.
It's a really stupid story.
It's a powerful story.
So one night, Chris had gone to bed. I'd been struggling. We still had all the same problems. We still had a lien on the house, still facing bankruptcy, still fighting like crazy. I was still unemployed. They still hadn't figured out like the solution yet for the business. And I was about to turn off the TV, and there on the TV, there was this rocket launching, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is it. I am gonna launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship, like NASA, right here, had launched me out of that bed. And I'm gonna move so fast that I don't think. I'm gonna beat my brain. Now, here's a really interesting point. I talk a lot about your instincts and inner wisdom. And we can get into this a little bit later, but a lot of us talk about the fact that you have a gut feeling. But what all this research that I've done for the book and all the speaking that I do, what I've discovered that's fascinating is actually when you set goals, when you have an intention on something that you want to change about your life, your brain helps you. What it does is it opens up a checklist, and then your brain goes to work trying to remind you of that intention that you set. And it's really important to develop the skill, and I say that word purposefully, the skill of knowing how to hear that inner wisdom and that intention kicking in and leaning into it quickly. So for me, my brain saying, that's it, right there, move as fast as a rocket, Mel. I wanted to change my life. And I think most people that are miserable or that are really like dying to be great and dying to have more, we want to change. We want to live a better life. We want to create more for our families. We want to be happier. The desire is there. Again, it's about how do you go from knowledge to action. So the first thing in this story that's important is realizing that the answer was in me. And my mind was telling me, pay attention. Could have also been the bourbon. I had a couple of Manhattans that night. But anyway, the next morning, the alarm goes off, and I pretended NASA was there. It's the stupidest story. I literally went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I counted out loud, and then I stood up. And I'll never forget standing there in my bedroom. It was dark. It was cold. It was winter in Boston. And for the first time in 3 months, I had beaten my habit of hitting the snooze button. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, wait a minute. Counting backwards? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Well, the next morning I used it again and it worked. The next morning I used it again and it worked. The next morning I used it again and it worked. And then I started to notice something really interesting. There were moments all day long, just like that 5-second moment in bed, where I knew, knowledge, what I should do. And if I didn't move within 5 seconds, my brain would step in and talk me out of it. Every human being has a 5-second window. Might even be shorter for you. You have about a 5-second window in which you can move from idea to action before your brain kicks into full gear and sabotages any change in behavior. Because remember, your brain is wired to stop you from doing things that are uncomfortable or uncertain or scary. It's your job to learn how to move from those ideas that could change everything into acting on them in the smallest moment.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.